What is the matrix or the network? I am your host, Matricea Stefano. In this episode, I am going to explain why the matrix exists and how it was created. As we were talking about the first dimension and how everything comes from the mind and the mentalism, we could see that every other reality that was created was just expansion of just this one reality. The first dimension is the one that holds every others. And the other dimension that we can tell holds every other reality, it would be the eighth dimension. Eighth dimension is this dimension where you can see everything, where you can contemplate the first dimension in every possible way. As the first dimension tried to express itself in duality, in trinity, in the fourth dimension with the statements in the fifth dimension, and every part of a reality starts to split in many concepts in different times, in different spaces. The eighth dimension, you can see everything just from one spot. As you can see from the first dimension that you are everything and that you project everything, the eighth dimension would have the information of everything, of every second, of every millions of years, in every perspective of the universe. So you can see it almost like a shape of a torus going around and spinning with many circles going around, and every circle will create like the shape of an apple. And this apple, it will shows you that every frame of time and space that you can see from this torus, it will be a part of the reality of every being living their lives. I was explaining that in fourth dimension, you could see the four pillars of reality, and that you have to go through expression, experimentation, integration, and transcendence. And every time you have done this circle, the four statements, the four pillars start to move a little bit in order to show you different perspectives so you can create different lives and different perceptions of the same issue. So once you have accomplished every part of this awareness of yourself in many lives, you have done the whole wheel of life, the samsara, doing the karma dharma wheel, and suddenly you have accomplished the whole process of your soul and your with many bodies. But in the eighth dimension it disappears, because the reality is not just a wheel of many lives in many times and spaces. It starts to be different beings around creating the sphere and the tree of life. The eighth dimension you could see like a big tree. We call it the white tree, the tree with these roots that touch the branches above and makes this sphere with many branches and dimensions around, and every leaf is like a world or a being living in the universe. This tree of life is the reality that we call the matrix. The matrix is a web, a network of connections that it's similar to our brain. Our brain works also with two parts, one creative, one logical. So in these two parts of the universe, you have all these synapses going on that connects the whole information of the whole universe from the past, the present, and the future. The eighth dimension is the one that connects the whole thinking of the universe in different levels of consciousness. Not only mind as in the first dimension, but also emotional and physical. That's why we call the eighth dimension the Akashic records, and also we call the eighth dimension the matrix in which we are all in. This is kind of the internet of God. The eighth dimension is the place where you have every programming, every app, every Wi-Fi, every signal, everything that you will need is in the 8th dimension. That's why when you are trying to change yourself or to integrate yourself, you can just download information from other levels to your own body. All this information is there waiting for you to be aware and in the same resonance to bring that information to you. So the network is this womb of creation of thinking that we call the network of consciousness. The network of consciousness is something that goes through the whole universe and connects us all, connects every consciousness in the world, in every galaxy. That's why in its conjunction we used to call it the subconscious. It's the conscience that holds us all and that condition us all while we are not conscious of ourselves. If we realize that we as human beings are not just beings above a planet, but we are also beings part of the planet, we are also beings part of the solar system, we are also beings with wisdom and conscience from the galaxy. Until we see that as a symbiotic being around the universe, so we are not going to be able to get in touch with the 8th dimension and download all the information that we possibly can imagine from every time, every space, in every part of the universe, and even every other universe around. I've heard a lot of people talking about the Matrix as something negative, as something that you cannot escape, that is like a jail or a cage where you are in, and the whole process of evolution is to see how can you escape Matrix. But this is not like that. This is a thinking that maybe was born in this planet where all beings felt that we were trapped because we were not taught about freedom. Freedom is not going away from something. Freedom is being responsible of your own reality. Freedom is when you have the power to decide for yourself, not the power to escape from other reality. So that's why in this planet we don't understand that Matrix is not a cage where you have to escape from. It's indeed the consciousness, unconsciousness, and subconscious of your reality. It's impossible to escape the subconscious. It's impossible because it holds everything that you are. The subconscious is not something under something, it's surrounding you. Subconscious is all this, inconscious is here, and the conscious is the seed of this fruit. So the subconscious and the unconscious is feeding with energy the conscious. So the network, the 8th dimension, is the place that feeds you with consciousness, is the place that gives you the information that allows every being to be connected to every dimension and allows every being to be connected to every other being in different worlds, dimensions, emotions, physical planets, the consciousness of God. Everything is connected in the Matrix. The Matrix is you. You are part of the Matrix. If we think that we are a leaf or a flower in a tree, and because we are a leaf or a flower, we are trapped in the tree, is because we didn't understand that the flower and the leaf are the product of the tree, and they are the tree indeed. They are not something separate. They are not something that is trying to go away from the tree. They are trying to feed the tree. With every experience, with every breath, you are feeding the network. The Akashic Records is like this library where every book that haven't been written yet and every book that was written shares the information all the time. So everything that is coming and everything that has come coexist in this tree of life, in this reality that we call the 8th dimension. All the information of the 8th dimension is around, and when you try to escape from the tree, it's like if a leaf or a fruit of the tree falls down to the floor. But you will realize something when you fell down to the floor, that you will be again food for the same tree. But if you have become a fruit by yourself and you recognize yourself that have the seed within, that you are the universe itself, so you become a fruit, and that fruit falls down from the tree and creates a new tree. But you will realize that new tree is exactly the same as the old one, but with new experiences. So the matrix is like the womb of a mother that you cannot escape. You can be born from your mother, but you will die and she will still be your mother. The mother is the one that holds and creates our energy, body and mind from the very beginning. So matrix must not be seen as something you have to escape from. You have to see it as a mother that is trying to help you to create your own world. One of the ancients' way to understand the matrix and the information that is there is the story of the tree of Adam and Eve. They used to call in Christianism a tree of life with apples that has all the information and wisdom of the universe. But it was prohibited for humans to eat those fruits because we were not ready to understand what those fruits mean. The story tells about this man and this woman that were trying to create a new world, a new reality. And suddenly there is a snake that tells them there is a tree there where you can find the whole information about how to do it. But it's prohibited for you. So you have to be ready to understand how to do it. This snake, we used to call it the devil, but the snake is not the devil. The snake is the doubt and the path of illumination. The snake means the Kundalini, is the process in which the being has to go up to look for the fruit in the tree of life. You have to go through the Kundalini, the energy of the snake, the light snake around your body, to work in every one of your chakras to be aligned in order to get that fruit of life. Instead of being prepared in every chakra, in every path, and work itself in order to be aligned to become a fruit in the tree of life, the humans try to eat the fruit of life and take the information from others that have done the job to work themselves to enlighten. So the tree of life is the key of the universe, is how the eighth dimension exists, is the whole beings and the whole information from the universe, just combined in this eighth dimension. In this tree, you have a lot of minerals in the roots and a lot of leaves in the branches. Every leaf is a living being in the universe. These leaves and these flowers that are the enlightened ones can help others to become better, to become flowers, to become leaves. And some of them, to do so, they have to die in this reality to go to the roots and the minerals to look for that information and bring those minerals up again. That's why beings from the fifth dimension, fourth dimension, sixth dimension usually die in those dimensions to be born in these dark dimensions, like the third one and the fourth one. These dimensions are the roots of the tree. So the ones that are considered the flowers and the leaves, which lives in the fifth and the sixth dimension, they must come down and bring that information again, and they will feed the whole tree of life once and again, until some of them, some enlightened ones, the ones that recognize that the whole process is just one being trying to create new beings around itself, they recognize that are able to create their own tree of life. That's why some flowers become fruit. Fruit is when they got the whole information and they started to create the whole information within. They understood the laws of the universe and they become creators of their own realities. They recognize that they are the seeds of life. So that's why they created this fruit around them, which are the Dharma and all this information, the new information of their own experience. They enlightened and then transcend enlightenment to become a fruit itself. So at that moment, the fruit goes down and start to feed not only the old tree, but the new tree you become, your own tree of life, your own universe. But this new universe will be the same one as the latest, because you are the same species of the tree. You are the same universe, but split in many other universes. So each one of those fruits are like books in the universe that holds a new information of who we could be. That's why the teaching of this story is don't eat the information of others. Just look into the information of others, but build your own information, your own truth, because the universe has given us the gift to become ourselves a universe. So if you take the information from other universe instead of creating your own universe, so you will be eating the fruit of that tree of life, and your own reality will disappear and will be destroyed by the information that is not your vibration. That's why in the story, when Eve eats the apple, the whole story for them is destroyed, because she was not building their own information, and he neither were building their own information. They were just living so quiet and peacefully that they didn't do the work for themselves to build their own tree of life. It's really difficult to be eighth dimension here on the third one, because the eighth dimension implies to be, to feel, to be aware of every timeline and every space in the universe. That's why it's the biggest consciousness. It's like trying to understand every information that you have in the internet. It's almost impossible, but it's not necessary to have all this information. It's not necessary to look for it. What you just have to do is to be open to receive the information that is in your same level of vibration, to be open to all this new information that is surrounding you, and be aware that you are part of the consciousness of the universe. When I explain about the eighth dimension and the Akashic records, I used to explain it like if it were a library or kind of a Wikipedia where you can go and look for any information you want. But for the eighth dimension, when you realize that every dimension is just a perspective of reality, you will realize that the eighth dimension is not a place where you have to go to look for that information, but you have to become in order to see and feel that information. So this is the difference between the people that is trying to get into the Akashic records to look for information, and the people that is willing to transform itself. The differences are that some people is going to the eighth dimension, to the network, to the matrix, to look for that information, and they touch the information outside their own, and they put their vibration and rhythm to that information they touched, because they touched that information. So this information pure in another part of the universe has to be at the same level of frequency of the person that is reading it, so it could be written. So you change the perspective of that information outside you, and then you go back, you explain that information to other ones, but that there changed. So that information there now is confused for those other beings that used to go and pick up information from there. So when you go outside to look information from your vibration, you can do a mess into the network that is connecting every being around. The only way you can download that information is not going there and look for it, but to be yourself, transform into the vibration of that information so you can download it. That's the good way of doing it. Don't go and look for the information, just put yourself in the level of that information so it could be downloaded to you. So that's why we need to be prepared to get in the 8th dimension. We cannot go from the 3rd dimension to the 8th dimension like if it was a trip. We have to be prepared inside our bodies to be aligned and to be centered in every chakra, in every part of our being, so we could download information from the 8th dimension. In 2024 and 2026, it will be a big download of information in this planet for new societies, for the new era. But if we don't prepare ourselves in between 2020 and 2022, for example, we are not going to be able to transform ourselves into that information. So that's why we need to be ready in our chakras, ready in our bodies, in our soul, in our mind, to be wide open to receive that information. Otherwise, it would be just like a rain where the water is just going away. To receive that information, to be open to the 8th dimension and the Taurus that is going to transform ourselves in the next years and the next centuries, we need to be aligned to the network of the 8th dimension. And that is why a lot of people now is talking about the reconstruction of the Taurus, the information of the Taurus, and how it works and how it creates matter. Because it's the only way we can understand how we are going to be able to transform ourselves in fruits of life. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I am your host and guide, Matías Estefano, for this series on the creation of the universe. Stay tuned for the next episode, where we will dive into the 9th dimension and what this means for the structure of the Earth.